European and Ukrainian officials have accused Russia of faking interest in peace efforts after talks with the US on Tuesday produced no breakthrough or compromise. Ukraine's foreign minister Andrei Sybiha urged Putin to, quote, stop wasting the world's time. And UK Foreign Secretary Yvette Cooper called on the Russian leader to end the fighting and come to the negotiating table to reach an agreement. The comments were made as foreign ministers from European NATO countries met in Brussels on Wednesday, a day after US envoy Steve Witkoff and Trump's son-in-law Jared Kushner met with Putin at the Kremlin on Tuesday. For his part, Putin has accused European allies in Ukraine of sabotaging US-led peace efforts. The US proposed a peace deal last month. However, the 28-point plan was met with widespread criticism for being too weighted towards Russian demands. On Thursday, Witkoff and Kushner are set to meet with Ukraine's lead negotiator, Rustem Umerov, for further talks.
The EU's former High Representative Federica Mogherini has resigned as rector of the College of Europe following accusations of fraud and corruption. An investigation into Mogherini was launched by the European Public Prosecutor's Office after she and two other suspects were questioned on Tuesday, with Belgian authorities searching the offices of the European External Action Service, the College of Europe in Bruges, and several private homes. Mogherini had led the elite institution, which specializes in European affairs, since 2020. The investigation is centered on whether tendering rules were broken in the award of a 9-month training course for young diplomats at the college between 2021 and 2022. On Wednesday, the three suspects were formally notified of accusations including procurement fraud, corruption, conflict of interest and violation of professional secrecy. Stefano Sannino, former EEAS Secretary General, is also under investigation and has taken early leave from his current role at the European Commission. European Commission Vice President Roxana Minzatou told Euronews' morning show Europe Today that European competitiveness doesn't have to come at the expense of workers' rights. As part of the EU's Social Europe agenda, Minzatou will unveil plans to upskill workers for current labour needs and the green and digital transitions. Minzatou addressed concerns that social rights have been traded off in the name of competitiveness.
Competitiveness is absolutely essential for us to be able to deliver quality jobs, but we cannot, as Europe, I think, achieve competitiveness if we forgo or if we lower the standards on employment. So we need to do this together, balancing the two.
One topic that will be addressed by the legislation is the impact of AI systems on the workplace. Recent reporting by Euronews showed that 1 in 4 European workplaces uses algorithms and AI to make decisions that impact employees' working lives.
Some jobs for sure will be transformed or will disappear, and some will be functioning with AI assistance. Our concern is that where we will have AI as a boss, not only as an assistant, we need to create trustworthy environments and trust for SMEs, therefore corporations and for workers to use and work with these systems.
Workers of all ages, regions and sectors will need to strengthen their AI skills, but Minzatou stressed that the Commission's plan will avoid creating any burden or overlaps for European businesses.
24 humanitarian workers who participated in search and rescue operations on the Greek island of Lesbos from 2016 to 2021 have begun their long-awaited trial. During the peak of Europe's refugee crisis that started in 2015, Lesbos became a key entry point for asylum seekers who often made dangerous journeys on small boats to reach Europe. The accused face up to 20 years in prison for charges including alleged participation in a criminal organization, facilitating the entry of third-country nationals into Greece, and money laundering. Greek authorities say the trial focuses on a border security issue, but human rights groups have condemned the accusations as a politicized crackdown on humanitarian workers. It comes after years of allegations that Greek authorities breached international and European laws in their response to the arrivals of refugees. In January, the European Court of Human Rights found that the Greek Coast Guard had conducted so-called pushbacks against potential asylum seekers, marking the first time a court officially acknowledged a practice Greece has long denied. Today, there are no NGOs conducting search and rescue operations or providing emergency response during landings on Lesbos, despite over 3,500 people arriving to the island so far this year, according to the UN's refugee agency. At least 4 countries have announced they are pulling out of next year's Eurovision Song Contest after organizers decided to allow Israel to compete. The participating broadcasters from the Netherlands, Spain, Ireland, and Slovenia each withdrew from the song contest after the European Broadcasting Union held its twice-yearly General Assembly. The countries called for Israel to be excluded over alleged interference in voting and its conduct in the war on Gaza.
Well, what I'm pleased is the membership have had a full opportunity to debate it, and I can tell you it was a full, frank, honest and quite moving debate. But as we can see from the emphatic result, what they really came together on is a belief that Eurovision Song Contest shouldn't be used as a political theatre. It must retain some sense of neutrality.
The EBU voted to adopt tougher voting rules in response to the allegations that Israel manipulated the vote in favor of their contestant. The contest of musical acts from dozens of countries strives to remain apolitical, but has repeatedly been embroiled in world events. Russia was expelled in 2022 after its full-scale invasion of Ukraine. Over the past 2 years, pro-Palestinian protesters demonstrated against Israel outside the Eurovision contest venues in Switzerland and in Sweden.
A grand reception at Beijing's Great Hall of the People welcomed French President Emmanuel Macron on Thursday for talks with Chinese leader Xi Jinping. The war in Ukraine was the first topic on the agenda. While China says it wants peace, it has never condemned Russia's invasion and has hosted President Vladimir Putin several times since the conflict began. Brussels also suspects China of supplying military components to Russia. Macron urged Xi to pressure Moscow, but Xi rejected any responsibility for the crisis. Macron, joined by 35 business leaders, also pushed for cross-investments to rebalance trade and called for cooperation with the G7 on rules-based economic governance. Trade imbalances from electric cars to steel remain a major point of friction with China. At the end of the talks, the two countries signed a letter of intent to strengthen cooperation. We spoke to our correspondent in Paris, Sofia Katsinkova, who tells us more.
Despite these tensions, Macron and Xi Jinping still signed 12 cooperation agreements on bilateral investment, nuclear energy, and even panda conservation.
The use of drones in the war in Ukraine and the violation of EU airspace by these aircraft requires a realignment of defence strategy, according to the bloc's top military official. All military, political and economic structures of the EU must be prepared and ready to defend themselves, the chairman of the EU Military Committee, Irish General Sean Clancy, told Euronews. To that end, the EU and the NATO alliance need to work together more closely.
There is a stronger relationship required between the EU and NATO. There is a need for coherence. There is a need to eliminate, insofar as practical, duplication. And the Drone Defence Initiative is about actually creating a greater coherence between civil society, the military, and the allies in this instance, of course, and the command and control structure of NATO. And NATO's role in terms of the defence and the deterrence in Europe is sacrosanct.
To better react to hybrid threats, the EU has launched the Drone Defence Initiative, Clancy said. With this instrument, Europe recognises the need for a coherent approach across Europe, as the weaponization of drones was seen in Denmark, Belgium and Poland.
So this is a pan-European issue, and the hybrid threats are borderless. They're non-discriminatory when it comes to actually malign actors or deliberate actions. that are undertaken in this sphere. So this is about actually creating a coherent approach across Europe. The first responsibility, of course, is on individual member states.
The war in Ukraine has led to a combination of trench warfare and the use of drones that has prevented a front line from moving at any important pace, Clancy said. That's why Europe has to prepare for the next evolution of war, which should ensure that the bloc has the necessary resources for research, development and innovation, he concluded.
5 Palestinians, including 2 children, were killed by an Israeli strike on southern Gaza on Wednesday, according to local officials. The attack on the shelter camp in Han Yunis left at least 32 others injured. Israel said it targeted Hamas militants in retaliation for an earlier assault on Wednesday that injured 5 of its soldiers. The latest violence came as another breach of the fragile ceasefire in force since early October that has largely held up despite mutual claims of violations. On Wednesday, Hamas returned one of the last remaining hostages, identified as a Thai national, who was killed during the Hamas-led attack on southern Israel, while Israel indicated it will open the Rafah crossing in the next few days to allow Palestinians in need of medical care to leave for Egypt. According to the Israeli military arm that oversees humanitarian matters, the opening of the Rafah crossing will be coordinated with Egypt under the supervision of the EU mission.